Welcome to Economy Unravelled, the latest series of Simsett Club of Sims Pune, where we delve into the world of economics and explore its intricacies in the industry experts. In this series, we'll be talking to leading economists, policymakers, and thought leaders to gain insights into the current state of global economy and what it means to businesses, investors, and individuals alike. So, in today's episode, we have with us Dr. Somesh K Mathur, a renowned economist with extensive experience in new trade theories and econometrics and growth. Dr. Somesh K. Mathur has advised governments, central banks, and top corporations on economic policies and strategies, and has been a prominent voice in shaping the public discourse around economic issues. Dr. Somesh K. Mathur, thank you for joining us today, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Okay, sir. So let's start with the burning question of the recent times. Why is everyone talking about BRICS these days?
See, BRICS, you have to understand the history behind it. BRICS was formed in 2009 as a counterbalance force for, the rise of the West economy and military power. So it is more of a geostrategic and geopolitical move led by China. So it was formed in 2009, and we have these five members, that is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And now, recently, in 2024, six new members will join in, wherein one member would be from Latin America and the other would be from the MENA region, that is Middle East and North Africa. And so BRICS, in the things that we have been doing, the work that we do, it has a potential to become a geo-economic uh, power, apart from the geostrategic and the geopolitical stands that it takes. It can be a geo-economic power as well.
Okay. So, sir, what do you think are the main reasons for expansion of BRICS? That
Well,
too in this period.
Well, as I said, that BRICS is more of a geopolitical and a geostrategic uh, 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 agreement. So, taking into account these Latin America countries like Argentina and uh, the Middle East countries, uh, uh, is again, catering to the economic interests in the BRICS five countries. Uh, if we analyze the BRICS five countries and we analyze the liberalization scenario, we see that there are scarcities, at least in land and natural resource. So, by aligning with these nations, especially in MENA, that is Middle East and North Africa, they want to cater to their scarcity in natural resource and land, apart from the geostrategic and geo-economic interest, because uh, in these six new members, you also have Iran,
Hmm.
right? Uh, and so BRICS with these new members will have China and as well as Iran. So they can be a counterbalance force to the rise of the West in terms of economy and military power. So there are both economic interests also involved and there are strategic interests also involved. Economy, because there is scarcity, so one has to take care of this. If you look at the Chinese import profile uh, with India, most of the imports are minerals and metals. So there is scarcity there, and so this initiative by China, it is China who pushed for having these six members. So there is this this economy angle, and because all these the new members, whether you talk of Egypt or Ethiopia or UAE, uh, and you have Iran, you know, they are sort of rich in natural resource,
Definitely.
and Saudi Arabia, that's a big nation. So there are both, as I said, both economic and strategic interests involved.
So, sir, according to you, how it will affect the global economy in the long run?
Well, uh, all these liberalization attempts, among a few, would always have some sort of a negative impact on the other economies. For example, this liberalization would impact negatively the North Americans and the Europeans, and some bit of Oceania countries, that is Australia and New Zealand. Because at the end, US and Oceania, that is Australia, New Zealand, they're again rich in natural resource. And if the natural resource requirements are met by not only BRICS countries and the other six new members, then naturally these nations will be impacted. And so will be the relatively poorer nations like sub-Saharan African nations. So this alignment surely will bring dividends to all participating countries, but it will also have a negative impact as far as welfare and growth are concerned to North Americans, to Europeans, Oceania countries, and the sub-Saharan African nations.
So, sir, that you mentioned that most of the new entrants are from the MENA region. So, what, according to you, will be the criteria for the membership in BRICS?
See, BRICS doesn't have a charter for any entrant. Okay? So somebody inside the BRICS must have thought about including these six new members, right? So there must be some criteria, which is not very open, that what can be the possible reasons that you had these six new members. Our research based on this GTAP model, which is Global Trade Analysis Project, uh, it has shown that if you align with these six new members, then the BRICS 4 nations have the greatest relative impact on their VGDP growth rates. That means they would grow at 2.75% if you align with these six new members. And this is compared to a scenario when these BRICS aligns with other regions. For example, East Asia is very much interested in aligning with BRICS. Europeans are very much interested in aligning with BRICS. North Americans are very much interested in aligning with BRICS. There are at least 40 countries which have shown interest in joining BRICS. And they're doing it for their own interest because they want to promote growth and welfare in their nation. It is another thing that BRICS have aligned with these six new members, but Europeans will have the maximum welfare in their own nation if they align with the BRICS. But our study, as I said, has shown that if you align with the six new members, interestingly, BRICS 4 will have the greatest growth rates in relative sense, right? Because there are other regions also, but you will have the maximum growth rates.
So, sir, how will this expansion will be financed, this growth that you're
See,
talking about?
it's a very interesting question because one needs to go behind the template of the BRICS, which said that essentially it will be an agreement promoting investments. So, therefore, uh, it wanted to create one multilateral development bank which will cater to the financial needs of these nations. That is the idea. But our basic trade theory says that trade and investments are all linked together. You cannot have investments without talking about trade, about tariffs, about non tariff barriers, about intellectual property rights, about trims, trips. Everything comes into picture. So, uh, one is a little bit disappointed that this basic idea of uh, the multilateral development bank working with uh, more energy and gusto has been lacking since 2009. For example, G20 also talks about multilateral development bank, but it says that the it will cater to taking care of poverty and inequality. BRICS talks about promoting investments, and that would mean that you should have regulations regarding investments. Regulatory cooperation should be primary thing in BRICS. So, these are some challenges for the future. And as I said right in the beginning, that it has a potential to become a geo-economic agreement besides geostrategic and geopolitical. And during your further questioning, I will talk about how BRICS can raise their growth and development given these challenges.
So, sir, can we now call this group as BRICS Plus? And if we can, so how do we analyze the impact of these six new member nations joining the BRICS? And won't it dilute the original motto of the formation of BRICS?
You see, BRICS, as I said, was basically formed for promoting investments. And trade and investments are all interlinked, right? So when you have uh, essentially BRICS, they also were talking about one single currency uh, of BRICS. But for having one single currency, there are certain prerequisites. That is, there should be free flow of goods and services. One, there should be fiscal union. Two, there should be interdependence among economies, synchronization of shocks, they say. All these have to be first strengthened within the BRICS and then you move out. So one cannot say at this stage that this is BRICS plus. First, you strengthen the BRICS process, and then you talk about these things with these six new members. So when I said geo-economic, I am talking about not only tariff and non tariff liberalization, but also movement of factors of production, that is, capital movements also happening. But in addition, this is important, our studies have shown that BRICS can become effective in raising growth and development if you talk about strengthening global value chains, if you talk about innovative industrial policy in the BRICS promoting manufacturing sector. So now is the time to bring in industrial policy on the discussion table apart from trade and investment liberalization. This is how BRICS can be strengthened, and this process, this idea can be shared with these six new members who will be very helpful in providing the natural resource scarcity which will happen in the BRICS nation with liberalization.
So, sir, according to you, what will India particularly stand to gain from this recent expansion of BRICS? And secondly, keeping in mind the large involvement of China in the expansion.
You're right. India would gain from BRICS if, apart from tariff, non tariff liberalization, and movement of factors of production, it favors strengthening of the global value chains, and then domestically it promotes manufacturing sector and transport and communication through technology induced manufacturing growth. This is how India could gain out of it. This is how its 1 to 2% growth rate in the existing scenario can increase to 6% only if you bring in global value chain, strengthen global value chain, concentrate on the value added process of the trading sector, and promote manufacturing sector in India. So there's a lot of potential apart from the fact that it has China in it, and you know that there are skirmishes happening in the border areas with China, and we complain a lot, but around 15% of our import requirements are met by the Chinese. Around 6% of our exports are met by the Chinese. So it's some sort of a paradox. You're right, absolutely a brilliant question. That it's a paradox that on the one hand, we have these political tensions, but on the other hand, our economic relationship has gone up. Let me also add in that any relations with the outside world depends on not only economic relations but also cultural relations, but also military relations, but also diplomacy. So in case of China we may be lacking behind couple of them, but as far as economics is concerned, we uh, we are heavily dependent on the Chinese. Now, i- in case we liberalize with Chinese and there are global value chains, then Chinese are going to gain 8 times more than India. So, India would be hesitant to have any economic alignment with Chinese, any economic agreement, but at the same time have these bilateral liberalization going, and for strategic reason also, political reason also, societal mandate also shows that India would be hesitant to align with the Chinese.
So, sir, a follow-up question to that. What will be the implications of this expansion on the global governance, given that China is consistently promoting its West opposing narrative in the BRICS?
Yes, you're right, because it was first set up, BRICS was first set up in 2009 as a counterbalance uh, strategy for, uh, they say, the containment of the West economic and military power, right? So this balance of uh, power theory of international relations comes into force here. Now, if it has to be a voice of the global South, it has to take care of uh, certain economic policies within the BRICS, and I've already talked about it. That it has to talk about not only investments but also trade. Trade and investments are all linked together. It has to talk about global value chains. It has to talk about promoting manufacturing sector. And so global governance would mean that it would need to bring, you know, uh, it has to tackle protectionism, which is happening all around. Since 2019, 3,500 trade restrictions have come all over the world. We don't want BRICS to, follow that protectionism. BRICS on their own imposes 8% tariffs. BRICS 4 imposes 8% tariffs on the other BRICS 4 nations. India imposes 21% tariffs, average 21% tariffs on BRICS 4. And then it has the highest non tariff barriers. So if one wants to promote trade, these tariffs need to come down. These non-tariff barriers need to come down. Global governance would mean that you need a supranational body to oversee this. Uh, if you were talking about trade happening multilaterally, it would have been that supranational body would have been WTO. But in here, countries have to realize that this is important, along with promoting multilateral development bank, which is basically promoting investments. So it can act as a lender of last resort. It cannot be a substitute for IMF, but that is what the thinking was. But investments cannot be in silos. It has to be with trade, investments, global value chains. You cannot have single currency unless until you have lot of interdependence, you have fiscal union, then only you can talk about one currency. So it is probably okay. From 2009, a lot of water has flowed uh, beneath the bridge, but now I think some uh, um, homework needs to be done. Some policies need to be retuned. Some course correction needs to be taken such that it becomes beneficial for all members and non-members.
Okay, sir. Sir, last question for the day. In today's Business Standard, I read a column about where some economic advisors of India were saying that India should quit BRICS before it dilutes even more. So, do you agree with this line of thought?
Yeah, I've already talked about some inadequacies in the BRICS. As I said, in its present form, it is hardly giving growth and welfare to the nations. It is only Brazil who is gaining the most by this BRICS, uh, because again it wants natural resource which is being met by the other BRICS nations. Chinese also wants natural resource. If you look at its import profile from India, most of the natural resource requirements are met by BRICS. But as I said, if it wants to move forward, the forward looking agendas are related to trade, investments, global value chains, and more than that, promoting manufacturing sector in the BRICS nations. Otherwise, it will lose its charm. It will be a weaker voice of the global south. But remember, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, which is an arrangement of 14 nations, is already in force, and that they say is a Chinese containment strategy. So we are seeing a world uh, wherein you have uh, these you know these group of countries coming in to counterbalance the rise of the economic and military might of the others. So I think this will keep going, but to make it more energetic and you know, BRICS as a force of the South, uh, we need to do some course corrections. So those pundits may be right in one sense.
And sir, lastly, any thoughts that you would like to convey to our audience regarding India's G20 presidency?
See, uh, if you look at the BRICS, India's per capita income is $2,200. South Africa 6,500, Russia 7,500 US dollars in a year, Brazil 9,000 US dollars, and then Chinese 12,000 US dollars. So we are in that catching up mode. You may say that we are the third largest economy in terms of GDP, but in terms of per capita income, an average Indian earns meager 14,000 rupees as compared to someone in Luxembourg, which is the richest country, 84 lakhs a month. So there's a lot of catching up to do. So we have to see how we can move up the ladder. What should we do to move up the ladder? So trade integration is important along with promoting your manufacturing sector because employment matters the most, right? So we should look at all these aspects of trade and investment integration with the commensurate policy, industrial policy. Industrial policy should be linked with the trade policy.
So, sir, do you think the G20 presidency will help achieving this?
Well, G20 will have G7 nations, will have then the, if you want to call it, the other developing nations, because I'm saying because it has Australia, it has New Zealand, uh, it has Saudi Arabia. So again, the same set of issues will come in G20 also. The per capita income is the lowest among the G20 nations. So if we can use these forums as a tool for promoting growth and development, then it is all fine, whether it is BRICS or G20, right? So we should look at it in that way. uh, okay, fine, the presidency has been rotating. They have accepted our plea of changing presidency, but there are so many other things that we need to do. We have another paper coming in India Quarterly on G20, and I present it in Brazil also, where we look in that which particular trade policies should we focus first or discuss first to have maximum gains among so many things that are discussed under G20, from climate change to taking care of uh, you know health management after COVID, to multilateral development banks, to sustainable development goals, and then in 2008 the financial crisis. So many things, and now climate finance. So which one of them would give us the maximum benefits? This is covered in that paper. So yeah, maybe next time when we have discussion, we can discuss it thoroughly, or you can read it in October December issue of the India Quarterly, which is a publication from Institute of World Affairs in Delhi. So we have put all these there.
Definitely, sir. So, sir, with this, we come to the conclusion of today's episode of Economy Unraveled. Thank you very much, sir, for being a part of this, and we would really thank you from the entire Simsett Club.
Thank you, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.